Welcome, friends. Tonight we're going to be talking about the full moon with the sun in Sagittarius and the moon in Gemini. But I wanted to just greet you all and say welcome, hoping that you all had a good Thanksgiving, even though it was a little weird this year doing Thanksgiving on Zoom. But I appreciate the fact, and I'm grateful for all of you for showing up to this ceremony, because I know in the busyness of the holidays that it's hard to find moments when we can just be in the stillness and be quiet. But I think it's so important that we take this time and gift ourselves with this time to just sit and connect to that still point within us, because it makes it easier then to go out into the chaos of the world if that becomes a habit. It's one of the benefits of meditation, that you learn to sit, become quiet, and your body gets used to that state of being, and then it becomes more difficult to live in the world of chaos. So it's nice to know that we all have that place within us and we can access it at any time. So I'm grateful for you showing up tonight and taking the time during this busy holiday season. Before we start talking, the exact moment of the full moon is tomorrow morning at 1:43 in the morning, and the lunar eclipse happens just before that at 1:30 in the morning. So those of you who are die-hard meditators can get up at 1:30 and be in meditation. So before we start tonight, I want to take our few minutes to do our alignment. So let's close our eyes. And I think that this is important because when we align together with a shared intention to be open and receptive to these energies that are coming in, we build an energy field that not only invokes the aid of the great ones, but it's a place where we can continually come back to in our imaginations and use that energy field as a support for us. And so the more we do it, the greater that energy field becomes and the more powerful it becomes. So let's use that to bring ourselves back into focus and steadiness when we feel chaotic and disjointed and out of sync. So that's what we're going to do in our alignment tonight. We're going to imagine ourselves sitting in a sacred circle. Even though we aren't in proximity physically, we can do this in the subjective realms. Just through our imagination, we connect. So let our intention be to create within this circle a positive energy field of light and love. And as we focus on our hearts, let the warmth of our love fill the space around us. Then imagine these loving energies connecting to each person in our circle. We are a network of lighted hearts. Now send this love into the center of our circle, where it forms a vortex of magnetic energy. Send this energy out into the world to bless our entire planet and all the kingdoms of nature. Slowly now, breathe this energy back into your own body, receiving the love and light from the sacred circle, and breathing in your own divine light. Sit for just a minute in the glow of your own sacred brilliance. How does it feel to be sitting in your own glowing, spiritual, beautiful essence? Wouldn't it be nice if we could see everybody that way? Okay, so I'm going to start with a poem called November, and it's by Lynn Unger. Is there anything left to be said about the blaze of autumn leaves? The way they let go with such graciousness. How they dance on the wind and crunch under the feet and glow in the afternoon light. Maybe just this. The colors fade. They turn sodden as milky cereal in the gutters and sidewalk. The trees look tattered and then vulnerable and exposed. It turns out that loss is really loss, which is every bit as much a part of the story as autumn's glamour. Listen, you are not obliged to be beautiful. You don't have to shine. Blooming will happen when it happens. If you can be still for a moment, you might notice that the roots that feed you are still reaching silently through the dark. All right, I love that. Blooming will happen when it happens. Most of us are pretty impatient to get the blooming started, aren't we? That's a good sentence to rest in. Blooming will happen when it happens. The poem doesn't really have anything to do with the full moon, but I loved it, and I sort of wanted a way to honor the month of November because we're going to be leaving that month the day after tomorrow. So to begin with, I'd like to say just a few words about the lunar eclipse that's happening tomorrow morning, and then we'll move on to talking a little more about Sagittarius and Gemini. So during an eclipse, the sun, the moon, and the earth align more precisely, so all the energies will be felt more intensely. And this particular lunar eclipse will give us all a sort of cosmic push to make changes in our lives. Oh, yay, more changes. Yippee! Eclipses always portend a release of some kind or someone. It can mean that something ends, or it can also mean that an opportunity presents itself that results in increased creativity. The areas of your life where this eclipse hits may seem dramatic turns, but following that, the path will be clearer ahead on how to move forward. So that's good news. Whatever happens at this time because of this eclipse will be nothing new. The issues will have been brewing inside of us for a while, and the emotions have been building. So something will come to light at the time of this eclipse. And it will be important to pay attention to your emotional body. That can be helpful right now. Getting in touch with your emotions can help you get a better idea of what needs to change or what needs to go. It's a lunar eclipse, so that means that the emotional body is going to be activated. And it's in an air sign, Gemini, so that means that the mental body will also be pretty active. So your thinking mind will be going at a good rate this month. All right, so moving on to Sagittarius and Gemini, one of the things that I always say about Sagittarius when we enter that sign is that it feels like I can take a really deep breath. I'm a Scorpio, so the Scorpio month for me is always pretty intense. You know, it's where we go and do battle with the Hydra. And we can emerge out from that underworld with a new dawn, with vision and hope, which is what Sagittarius energy brings to us. Hopefully we cleared away some of the darkness that we found within ourselves, and now we stand ready and poised to embody a higher purpose. Sagittarius is all about reclaiming the larger perspective, the higher aspiration. One of the symbols for Sagittarius is the archer on the horse, aiming his bow and arrow. The Sagittarian disciple aims his arrow straight and true toward the highest vision he can imagine. And once the goal is reached, he resolutely moves forward to the next goal. One of the mantras for Sagittarius is, I see the goal, I reach the goal, and then I see another. Sagittarians are on a relentless pursuit for the truth. So they're very dedicated and very disciplined. Some descriptive words for Sagittarius are one-pointedness, they're very directed, explorer, they're adventurous, they're seekers of the truth, they're moralist, they're very moral people usually, they have a really strong sense of what's right and what's wrong. They can often be free spirits. They're also known as the guides, the know-it-all, the philosopher. And of course, remember that whenever we talk about descriptive words of a sign, we're making gross generalizations because not everyone will fit all of these descriptions of Sagittarius. A lot depends upon your chart and all the different aspects affecting your chart. So understand that this is just a generalized statement about the energy of Sagittarius. The opposite sign, Gemini, has a very different energy. Gemini is here and there and everywhere, usually all over the place. Gemini seeks the truth as well, but in a different way. Gemini's mind is agile. It's an air sign. It's a mental sign, and it's ruled by the planet Mercury. So Geminis can often tend to jump from one thing to another. And the way they seek truth is by gathering all the information they can get from many, many different sources. And then they love to disseminate it at every opportunity. So these two signs need one another. Sagittarius needs Gemini to keep him flexible so he doesn't become rigid, because often when you have that one-pointed, dedicated, determined energy, you can get tunnel vision and you just see things one way. You don't take in the larger perspective. And Gemini, on the opposite hand, needs Sagittarius to keep them focused because they're usually all over the place. So they're very good partners if they can work together. Sagittarius is a fire sign, and Gemini is air. So what manifests when we join fire and air? What would that look like? Well, it may manifest as a very strong mental energy with Mercury as one of the rulers. And strong, fiery mental energy can often be destructive and powerful if it's used in a negative way. So one of the keynotes for Sagittarius is harmlessness. In the ancient mystery schools, Sagittarius was called the sign of silence because the potential for destruction was so great. So the discipline became practicing silence. We're moving into the holiday season now, so can you imagine how different our holidays would be If silence was our keynote, let's think for a moment about how we can bring the quality of silence into our daily lives during this busy holiday season. It doesn't mean that we're going to walk around not talking, but it does mean that we can practice establishing that inner sense of silence that I was talking about at the beginning, where we go inside and we just sit in that inner silence or that inner quiet that we can access within, and then take that out into the world. We can also call upon the discipline and the dedication of the Sagittarian energy to help us become harmless in thought, word, and deed. How can we silence the busy mental energy of Gemini? How do we quiet down those thoughts? One thing I think that can be helpful is the practice of mindfulness, to just be mindful of our thoughts, to watch them, to notice them, to not get swept away by them. This takes awareness and serious intention. So when we catch ourselves mentally obsessing or wandering into a dreamy state or a negative loop, we can bring ourselves back to the present moment. And meditation is a great practice to help us with that. Because in meditation, we're taught to continually bring our minds back to the present moment over and over and over again. I was in a meditation retreat one time where the teachers were very experienced meditators, had been meditating for 40 or 50 years. And one of the questions that they were asked was, does it become any easier to quiet your thoughts or to not identify with your thoughts? And the woman just laughed, the teacher, and she said, no, it doesn't become much easier, but I've learned to not be so hard on myself when I have to keep coming back and coming back and coming back. So that's a good thing to remember, that it's, it's a practice, and the more we do it, the easier we can be with ourselves. So meditation teaches us to watch our thoughts go by like clouds in the sky. And we can learn not to identify with them. You know, that saying, don't believe everything you think, it's really true. And then we can invoke our discerning minds to notice, is this thought illuminating? Is it even true? Or is it just my ego rambling on and expressing its opinion? Once we become aware of our thoughts, we have choice. Always with awareness, we are given choice. Do I want to stay here in this negative loop, obsessing? Or do I want to pause and think of a more illuminating thought? We can always shift the energy and raise our vibration with our intention and with our awareness. How do we silence our words? Well, we could listen more and say less. It's interesting to notice how present we are in conversations. Are we listening to understand, or just thinking of what we want to say next? How comfortable are we with lulls in the conversation? Do we give ourselves and the other person time to respond, or do we just talk out of nervousness? We can learn to practice pausing and asking ourselves, is this important to share? Is it harmful to anyone? We might take a moment and examine our motive for sharing. Do we have an internal need to share? Like, don't you know there are some people who get excited and jump up and down with any kind of dramatic news, and they just can't wait. Can you wait? I just can't wait to tell you this. I can't wait for you to hear this. And it's sort of like an adrenaline high. So again, mindfulness and being aware can help us monitor our words. How do we maintain silence in our actions? We might ask ourselves, how possible is it for us to curb an impulsive desire to act? Can you give yourself time to step back and wait for clarity? Once clarity is there, there's a better chance that right action will ensue. We aren't as likely to be reactive if we pause and take a moment to consider. This type of reflection is especially important when there are big decisions to be made. Again, we always have choice. So we might ask ourselves this question during this holiday season. How much activity do I really want to bring into my life at this time? Think about that for a moment. You get to choose how active, how busy you want to be, what activities you want to partake in. Are you choosing activities that uplift and help restore your energy, or are you choosing activities that drain you? You get to choose. Of course, our choices are a bit limited during this time of COVID, but still, we get to choose how we want to use our energy. Sagittarius, as we said, is a fire sign, full of energy, passion, enthusiasm. It's also idealistic and visionary. If we think of these qualities and imagine them being used at their highest vibration within us, what would that look like? How can we use the Sagittarian energy for its highest good? One possibility is that we can commit to single-mindedly holding in our thoughts the vision of a world at peace, with people cooperating in brotherhood and sisterhood, with people recognizing the divinity within each other, uniting to create a better world. We could energetically and passionately direct our emotions to expanding our hearts, releasing our fear, and strengthening our belief that a larger plan is operating. And that is what is out picturing right now. We can affirm that help is available to us from the great ones, but we must ask. There is a spiritual law called the law of invocation and evocation. And this law states that this planet is a free will planet, meaning that the great ones will not interfere in our evolutionary process, but they can pour forth their aid to us if we ask. And we are promised that whatever we invoke with a spiritual intent will stimulate a response. This invocative appeal is strengthened when we join together with a united intention. The appeal acts as a magnet, drawing the energies downward from the spiritual dimensions. The stronger the appeal, the greater the downpouring. By the same token, when we join with other people of goodwill throughout the planet to evoke the great ones, we can use this energy to vitalize our vision, to strengthen it. We create a thought form of a world at peace, and that thought form will eventually manifest. But we must hold it in our consciousness. We must ask that it be infused and energized by the spiritual realms, and then hold that vision in our minds, give it our passionate energy, and then take some small action to help manifest it in the world. It will have an impact. Another thing we can do is to invoke the Great Ones to protect and bless our planet during these critical times. What we see in the world today are the forces of darkness, those forces whose consciousness is one of materialism, those forces who are fighting against humanity's evolution. How do we deal with that? By invoking the light, by asking the forces of light to descend upon the earth. We have so much help available, but we do have to ask. We can ask that a protective shield of light be placed around our earth, a shield that will dispel the darkness. This is a critical time in our planetary history. We are told in the ancient wisdom teachings that humanity is on the verge of taking the first initiation, which means a huge expansion of consciousness for all of humanity. We must use our energy to help bring this about. And the years between now and 2025 are called the years of the burning ground, where the chaos is likely to increase. But there is a purpose to the chaos. It is to bring about the destruction of the old forms that are no longer useful, and to clear out the old thought forms that obstruct our forward movement. This is to clear the way for the coming Aquarian age, which we are told is to manifest fully sometime in the next 200 to 300 years. So only 2 or 3 more lifetimes, right? Before we can manifest the higher vision for our world, we must begin with ourselves. Now is the time to mobilize our efforts, to commit to expanding the light within ourselves, to dedicate ourselves anew to our spiritual practices, to be mindful of our thoughts, and to hold on to the vision of a redeemed humanity. This is a time to control our emotional bodies, holding everything and everyone in compassion. It is not a time to succumb to fear. Perfect love casts out fear, the Bible tells us. Aligning ourselves with people of goodwill everywhere in our meditations can have a powerful impact on the healing of the world. This energy is subjective, but with a strong intention to align, it can be just as powerful as if we were meeting in person, face to face. When the masses of humanity raise their voices in a united, invocative appeal, we give power to the Great Ones to impress upon the world leaders the higher principles. We're told in the ancient wisdom teachings that during the Second World War, it was the invocative power of humanity that allowed the Great Ones, the Masters, to impress upon the minds of the scientists of that time the right formula for the discovery of atomic energy and the splitting of the atom. And they deflected this information away from the forces of darkness. In the book, The Externalization of the Hierarchy by Alice Bailey, we are told, quote, "The Second World War was not won by the surrender of the German army. That was only the outer result of inner happenings. The war was won by the forces of light when the mental potency of the forces of evil was overcome by those who were seeking the higher human values and the spiritual good of humankind." End quote. So we have this power to invoke the forces of light and to use those forces to create a more just and perfect world. And that will be the focus of our visualization tonight. So take a moment to get yourselves comfortable and let us prepare. So let's close our eyes. Feel yourselves present in this moment. quieting the body, just noticing the rhythm of your breathing. Make yourself comfortable, sitting with the spine relatively erect, but with no undue strain or tension. Establish a quiet rhythm to your breathing, and feel the body begin to relax and let go. Breathe a silent Om into the physical body, releasing all tension and strain. Breathe a silent Om into the mental body, allowing the mind to become still. And finally, breathe a silent Om into the emotional body, neutralizing any disruptive, conflicted energies. Take a moment to feel the stillness that is created by this process. Now, imagine the light of the soul shining as a ball of light above your head. Feel its radiance. Feel its power. This soul light contains all of the wisdom that you have garnered over lifetimes. See that light descend into your body. See it connect to each chakra as it moves downward into the earth. In the center of the earth, the energy of the heavens align with the energies of the earth. Feel this alignment within your own body. Heaven and earth aligned within you. Now let us reach even higher. Let us send our energy up into the home of the great ones, the masters. Ask to be connected to the spiritual realms where they reside. Ask to be connected to them. We've been told that the head of this hierarchy of masters, called the Christ, has promised that whatsoever we ask in his name shall be accomplished. So let us ask for the forces of light to descend upon our planet. See in your mind's eye this energy descend and flood our planet with light. Imagine this energy magnetizing the will to good within the hearts of people everywhere. Imagine what that would look like if the will to good was manifest throughout humanity. Imagine what it would look like for each of us to walk through our days with the will to good as our motivating energy. Let us ask now for the great ones to impress upon the leaders in our country those great ideals and ideas that are based on a worldview of inclusivity and cooperation. Let the vision of brotherhood and sisterhood be realized. Let us hold a vision of a world at peace, of a world where resources are shared, and where we recognize the divinity within everyone. Let us call forth the forces of light to create a great, unifying, protective, and defending wall of light around our planet, magnifying the good and dispelling all negativity and evil from within and without. See this as clearly as you can in your mind's eye. A unifying, protective, and defending wall of light around our planet. Finally, let us visualize the Christ, the head of the hierarchy of masters, in the center of our planet, radiating forth love, compassion, and blessing on all the world. Let us work in this way, aligning ourselves with the forces supporting the evolution of humanity. Let us work without fear. Let us remember that this is why we chose to incarnate at this time, to be beacons of light to our world as it goes through this transition into a new age. And let us close with this world prayer that was created in the mid-1930s and given to us by the masters. Let the forces of light bring illumination to humankind. Let the spirit of peace be spread abroad. May people of goodwill everywhere meet in a spirit of cooperation. May forgiveness on the part of every human be the keynote at this time. Let power attend the efforts of the great ones. So let it be, and help us to do our part. Namaste, dear friends. I hope you have a wonderful holiday season. We're planning a solstice ceremony for the 21st of December, so you put that on your calendars. And then there'll be another full moon ceremony, I think it's December 29th. So I thank you all for coming, and that's the end of our ceremony, but I do have one more poem. If anyone would like to stay for a few minutes more, this is a great poem. I just didn't want to take the time during the ceremony to read it. But if you care to stay, please feel free. If you don't want to, that's fine too. Or if you don't like poetry, you can just leave the meeting. But I wanted to share this with you because it was I thought it was such a beautiful, beautiful poem. It's called The Quiet Power. I walked backwards against time, and that's where I caught the moon singing at me. I stepped downwards into my seat, and that's where I caught freedom, waiting for me like a lilac. I ended thought, and I ended story. I stopped designing and arguing and trying to sculpt a happy life. I didn't die. I didn't turn to dust. Instead, I chopped vegetables and made a calm lake in me where the water was clear and sourced and still. And when the ones I loved came to it, I had something to give them, and it offered them a soft road out of pain. I became beloved. I could give something mighty, lasting, that stopped the wheels of chaos by tending to the river inside, keeping the water rich and deep, keeping a bench for you to visit. It's written by Tara Moore. And I thought that was just such a great reminder going into the holiday seasons. You know, we have to tend to the river inside so that we have something to give our loved ones when they come to us for water or sustenance or whatever they come to us for. And it's so easy during this season, I think, to just be thinking so much about what we're going to give people for Christmas, or what do I have to do that, or what relatives do I need to see, or how do I, blah, 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 blah. Let's just tend to the river inside this season. And remember that silence is the keynote. And I'd be curious to see if your holidays are any different, if you can hold on to that idea of walking through them with silence in thought, word, and deed. Not easy, but worth an attempt. So, okay, my dear friends, be safe, be well, take good care of yourselves.